All right, guys, what's going on? It's Coach Will. In this video, I want to talk about tough sell prospects. So this is a sales video, sales and follow-up video. We're going to talk a little bit about doing sales follow-up when you get a lead or a prospect opting in through your sales funnel and they're in your sales pipeline and you're trying to move them from lead to a booked appointment or whatever the next stage in your sales funnel is, right? So Joey West here is making this comment. He made this post here in our school group, which all of our clients here at biglittlegyms.com get access to. They get access to the Big Little Gyms Pro Group. It's where we do all of our mentorship guidance, and you can ask questions to our community of gym owners and get response from both myself and other gym owners who are very successful in our program. And his question here, his post is titled "Tough Sell Prospects," and his question goes like this. He's got a couple questions here, so we're gonna do them one at a time. He's asking, I'm wondering how each of you attacks tough sell leads and prospects. My recent example is a lead pricing request. After the standard automated response to the lead expressed the need for more detailed pricing before stepping foot in the gym, because if your pricing isn't good, I won't go to your gym no matter how good it is. Okay, so really good question. So in your sales funnel, you'll get a lot of leads that come in that are price conscious, right? They're out there shopping based on price, right? So just to kind of frame this up, the first thing to understand is that if you're not the lowest priced gym in town, this is kind of a lose proposition here, right? For someone to like request this information from you. So how you answer this question has to be done very, very pragmatically. Because you already know, if I just tell this person my price without any other value discrepancy, any other way to differentiate myself from what I'm offering, they're just going to say no, right? Because if you're a CrossFit gym or a functional fitness gym selling $150, $175, $200, $250 a month membership, which you should be, because you're offering you're not just offering a gym full of equipment, you're offering scheduled classes led by a certified coach with programming that is scalable to multiple effort levels and skill levels. You're offering that programming is done hopefully like as part of a continuation program that's designed to evolve a member from where they are to where they want to be over a long period of time, right? And you're also managing a community and events and all these other things, right? You're doing a lot more than just saying, hey, come, work out at my gym and here's some equipment, right? So you should be valued much, much higher than those lower price, like access style gyms. But that's who you're competing against when people are just looking for a gym, right? They're looking at the whole range of the market. And if you're $150, $200 a month, which is totally fair, and you can be very successful running a gym at that price point, but you can't compete against the gym that's offering a $40 product, right? Not without providing and building value first in what they get. And it's very, very hard to do in these brief exchanges where they're like, what's your price? What's your price? What's your price, right? And that's why you have to handle this a certain way, right? So just to continue on with his question here to answer more of it, he said, we all deal with these kinds of personalities, but wondering how you all deal with them. Do you abandon certain leads because of the time and trouble you perceive they might take at a cause? Based on the way they might affect your community if they join? Do you dig deeper to see if your initial impression might have missed the mark? Do you ignore all of that and figure their money is green like everybody else's? Great questions. I really like that Joey's question, that I shouldn't say he's questioning himself, because I don't want to make him sound like he's, lacking any confidence, because Joey's a great guy. But those are good, those are high level awareness questions, because, I get them all the time, right? I get people with our program that say, hey, what's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? And they're just looking for like the cheapest way to like grow their gym, right? So they come to Big Little Gyms and they're just like price, because they're used to like all these gurus asking for like $15,000, $20,000, and we're nowhere near that range of cost. But that's what they're used to. So they just come at us looking for price. And even though I know we're probably a higher value offering in space, I still don't like diving right into the conversation, because I'm not trying to sell people based on price. I don't want people doing my program based on a price or a guarantee or anything like that. I want people to do my program because they're making an investment in their business. Because if they make the investment in their business from a monetary on time standpoint, they're going to get more results with that level of accountability and attention they're going to get here in my program. And it's going to have a much bigger result for them. It's also going to make the client that's going to stay a lot longer. And it's the same for most gyms that are selling $150 or $200 a month membership. They're not trying to sell everybody in town. They're trying to sell the people that want to make that investment into their fitness and wellness from a long-term standpoint, right? That's why these gyms survive on like 150, 200 members, or 250 members at most, right? So that's what's really, really important to understand if from the outside looking in. Now, if you're a gym owner, you already know this if you own one of these gyms, right? I'm just saying that so I can, so we know where we position ourselves in the market, right? But I like this question in that, like, do we dig deeper to see if your initial impression missed the mark? Yes, we absolutely should, because your job at the end of the day, if you're the person doing the follow-up for your business, you are the salesperson, right? And if you were to hire a salesperson, you wouldn't just trust their first impression of everybody that they talk to, right? Because I've hired and built and managed sales teams. And I'll tell you that when I hire salesmen, they'll do the same thing, right? They'll go in, if it's not a lay down lead, if they're not a really good salesman, they'll come to me and they'll start complaining about the leads. But I know, because I've sold at a high level for years in a number of industries, that that our job as salesmen is to meet the prospect where they're at and shift them, right? Shift their perception of us, and not take the bait, right? And sometimes the bait, what I mean by that is, like, they might put out there, what's your price? And they're trying to be very, very direct with you. And your job as a salesman is to deflect someone when they're coming directly at the thing that, like, maybe isn't going to serve them best, right? And that's how I view it. It's like, at the end of the day, if I already know that, like, they're not going to, that if I say it's $150 a month, they're not going to understand that, then I shouldn't just say it's $150 a month, unless, of course, I'm trying to just deter them entirely. Then they're just going to say no, and because they're not going to understand. And at the end of the day, like, do I get, if that's not going to earn me the opportunity to serve them and show them the value of why this is worth this, because they absolutely can afford it, and anybody can afford this. They just don't quite yet see the value. So I need the opportunity to demonstrate to them the value, right? So my job is to get past this hurdle, this bottleneck, this objection, and get on the other side of it, right? So ideally, I approach this discussion with maybe like a range type discussion. It costs about this, right? And trying to reduce that number down, we call it the reduced to ridiculous, right? And when we used to sell cars, when I used to sell cars, someone would come in and they would come in with like champagne taste, but a beer budget, right? They'd walk on the lot and they'd be like, I want the Yukon. I used to sell GMCs. I want the Yukon Denali. And, they were rolling in. I could see they were rolling in like a Nissan Altima, right? They're coming to Nissan Altima, a $30,000 car, and they're coming in to look at a $100,000 SUV. And they would come in and be like, I want to look at the Yukon Denali. I'm ready to step it up. And I already knew that before we sat down to talk about price, that was going to be a big hurdle. So my job oftentimes was to bring them down a notch, right? I'd be like, okay, well, let's go take a look at the options today. And I'd start at the base level Yukon and show them what that looks like. And I wouldn't tell them what the price per month was going to be, because I already knew what they were paying for their Ultima. If they bought a $30,000 car and they bought it new, they probably have a $500 a month payment if they put a little bit of money down. So I would walk over to the base level, Yukon. I would say, this is a base level Yukon. It's got cloth seats, it's got navigation, it's got a couple nice things. This, type of vehicle is probably going to put you in the $600 to $800 a month range to get into, then I would walk over, and I wouldn't lead with that. I would first really sell them on the vehicle, really sell them on its features, because that's the one they're probably going to leave with, right? My goal was to try to sell them that lesser model Yukon, because I knew that it wasn't going to be doubling their payment, right? Because I knew if I sold them the Yukon Denali that was $100,000, I was going to triple their monthly payment, and most people just were not going to be able to afford that, or even qualify for it if they're driving a Nissan Altima, right? So I'm trying to get the deal done from the beginning of the deal, right? So I would walk them over to the Yukon Denali. I'd be like, okay, this is Yukon Denali. Now it's the same vehicle. It's got, about a 50 more horsepower. It's got an 8-speed transmission versus a 7-speed transmission, which, by the way, the 8-speed transmission is just one extra highway gear, which it's not the same final gear. So as far as fuel economy goes, it's actually the same fuel economy. It's just got an 8-speed because it has a little more horsepower, so it needs a little more gearing to get the same fuel economy. If you actually bought the other model, you wouldn't need that 8th gear, because you don't have all that power. But you have more than the power. You still have 380 horsepower. This one just has 450, right? So like you're very similar. And I'd say, this one has the leather seats, whereas the other model has cloth, but they're actually the same seat. Sit in it. Tell me if you can tell the difference. They'd be like, oh, the leather is nicer, but the cloth seat, it's actually fine. I thought it was very, very comfortable. You know what I mean? And then they'd be like, yeah, same entertainment system in the middle, actually, between the two models. You just have a little bit nicer trim on the Denali here, but the other model's still pretty nice. It's got wood grain. You both have heated steering wheels. Both are 4-wheel drive. both, sit on 20-inch wheels. The ones on the Denali here are a little bit nicer, but if you want, we can get you a model that has a little bit nicer wheel on the base model. And then I would just kind of start positioning them into what I wanted to buy them. Now, this is a long story, but I'm sharing this with you to get you to understand that, like, if I were just to walk the guy over to the Denali and say, okay, here's the Denali, you want to drive it? And then them really get hooked on the Denali. And then I bring them in and say, okay, we're going to give you $20,000 for your Nissan Altima and the Yukon Denali, $5,000 discount on it. It's $95,000. Payment on that is going to be, $1,500 a month. And they're used to paying $500 a month for their Altima. What do you think the response is going to be? They're going to be, holy moly, I didn't realize it was going to cost 3 times as much. You can't even start to negotiate on that discussion. You're so far outside the realm. But because I repositioned them on the lower price Yukon, I could sit down and be like, hey, yeah, you're $750 a month for the model that has, the SLT model that has the nicer wheels. It's got the cloth, or maybe even like it's a leather model, but it's not the Denali, and then now we're in the window, right? And like I already know, so it's our job to know what's best, because people don't know what's best for them when they're buying, right? So when someone's coming in for a pricing inquiry, they don't know what's best, right? Like, we know what's best, so we can't hold that against them, right? It's our job as salespeople, as business owners. If we're business owners and we don't have a salesperson, that means you're the salesperson, right? So how good are you? And if you believe you're selling something that someone has to have that's more valuable than the competition, then it's your job to reframe the discussion when it comes in. And how you reframe that discussion is you start with a conversation about, okay, well, it can be as low as $7 per visit up to $400 a month, depending on what your goals are. What are your goals, right? So you're shifting the discussion, you're giving them an idea of price and kind of answering their question, while also kind of not, because again, answering the question directly, when you meet fire with fire, they're asking the question directly. When you meet it directly, it just escalates, right? You're trying to de-escalate that very conflicting question, right? When someone says something that's very conflicting, and it's only going to be conflicting if you meet it head on. Don't meet it head on. You want to redirect, right? Now, that still might not work out, and that's okay. It plays to the odds play to your benefit if you play the game that way. And you can view it. Some people take this as like, oh, you're using salesmanship. You're trying to convince people. You're trying to persuade people. Yes, that is what we're trying to do, because we sell something that we know is valuable, because we sell something that we know we can change people's lives, something that we know is much more valuable than what they're going to compare it against at a much, much lower price point. So yes, it is using persuasion. It is using those things. It is using them for good if you are a true believer in the product you sell. Now, if you don't believe that, you're going to feel kind of icky about this because you don't drink your own Kool-Aid. And that's a you problem, not a client acquisition or sales problem, right? Okay, so that's a big part of this. Now, how do we address this? Now, Mike asked a really good question. Mike Monarch said, have you gotten on the phone with them? This is actually the first question I had, was like, okay, the discussion, using automated text messaging systems like we have here at Gemnetics, they work great, and they can help a lot with reducing the redundant conversations that come in for pricing inquiries and things like that. But honestly, if you just pick up the phone and answer the phone, and you smile and dial, and the person picks up the phone and you greet them really kindly, hey Jerry, here's how it goes, okay? What's up? You pick up the phone, it's ring, ring, ring. They pick up, yeah, Jerry here, and you can tell it's like this guy who's like, who's calling me, right? And or at least say hello. A lot of times they don't even like say who their name is, right? Hello, because they're like, this is someone, I don't know this number, this is someone's bothering me, right? You don't ask them, hey, is Jerry there? Like, don't do that. That is not how you do good follow-up. You just assume it's Jerry because it's Jerry because they gave you their phone number and you've been texting on them. It's kind of a stupid question for you to be like, is this Jerry? Hey, Jerry, what's up? It's Will over here at Spark CrossFit. We were talking over text. You were asking about the pricing stuff. That's kind of a loaded question, so I figured I'd just give you a call to better give some idea and answer any questions you might have from there. And then I never asked, like, hey, is this a good time, right? Like, stop trying to be polite. All you're doing is shooting yourself in the foot. Like, there's nothing polite. All you're doing when you insert a question like, is this a good time, is giving someone an opportunity to think about, no, this is not a good time, because it's never a good time, because people are busy, right? So like at the end of the day, like, be assumptive that this is they inquired about this. They want this information. Hey, okay, cool. Yeah, you asked about pricing. So pricing is low as X up to X. And honestly, and you can approach this however you want. But generally I would just tell them like, hey, I would be right up front. I'd be like, hey, if you're just shopping based on price, because like, they're coming at it as like, give me the price, give me the price, give me the price. And so you could try to slither around this however you want. There's a number of ways you could repeat yourself and say, hey, it's as low as $7 a session up to $300 a month. It really depends on what your goals are. And I'd like to, sit down and have a discussion with you, make sure we get you in the right membership option. Like, that can work. But before I would even say that, I would often just tell people right up front, like, hey man, like, are you just looking for the cheapest gym in town? Like, are you just looking for the cheapest option? Is that what you're looking for? And I would just ask them, and they would be like, if they said yeah, which they never did, by the way. They said yeah, I could just be like, hey, okay, like, that's fine. We're not going to be, just so you know right up front, we're not going to be the cheapest option. We're not designed to be what you're going to get in a gym that's $20 a month. Is entirely different from the experience you're going to have, to the coaching you're going to get, to the program you're going to receive, to the outcomes you're going to get. And then if you don't think it's worth it to pay a little bit more for better outcomes and better experience, then like, we're not going to be the best option for you. Now, do you still want to have a discussion about the next steps? But if they did have, what they said most of the time when I asked that question of like, hey, how do you, if they asked the question like, what's your price or whatever, I would just be right up front. I would ask that question, and then they would say, if they said, no, I'm not looking for the cheapest option, which was true. Okay, good, yeah, because we're not going to be the cheapest option in town. We actually have a range of options. It can be as low as like $99. We even, I would say like we have punch cards that are like $100 a month that have like a limited number of classes you can attend, or we have like up to $1,000 a month for private personal training sessions. Just really depends on what you want. And that's why it really makes sense for us to come down and chat about like your goals for a minute. And I'll go over the options. But what I can promise you is like, we won't lose you based on price. We never do. We've never had anybody come in and say like, this isn't worth it. And it really makes sense for us to meet and make sure it's the right place for you to train. I'm happy to take you on a tour, show you around, sit down, talk about your goals, your current situation, and where you're trying to be, and show you how we can get you there. And if it doesn't make sense, then no big deal. Like, there's no pressure to join our gym. I just want to make sure I have the opportunity to properly show you like how we do what we do and the value of what we do before we have the conversation just based on price alone. Does that make sense? And I would always like say a rhetorical question like, does that make sense, right? Now, this is all, if you listen to me talk, these are very natural language patterns for me. I have a number of years practicing this, right? And that's because like I've encountered this discussion a number of times. And the first times I learned to do this, it was a little, like deer in headlights. Okay, like, and I stumbled and I fumbled, but I kept doing it and I kept working on it. And before too long, like I just had conversations this way. I just had conversations in a more persuasive manner, right? Instead of like trying to meet fire with fire and trying to meet fire with fire in regards to this person who might be a certain personality type. I instead came at it from a different angle, right? Instead of trying to meet them at the same head-on, one-to-one, because I just realized after enough time of doing it wasn't serving me. So after enough time, I just started trying to approach it from different angles. And before too long, I found saying these things this way worked better more often. Not always, but more often, right? There's still going to be situations where you do what I just said. And the guys will say to you, stop bullshitting me. Just tell me what your price is. And you can say, hey, you know what, man? It sounds to me like, this might not be the best fit. I'll tell you what it costs. But if you don't know the value of what it costs, then why does it matter what it costs? Like, if you don't know what you're going to get, I'm already telling you, we're not going to be the cheapest in town. And I would just tell people like that. And what's funny is sometimes that response would get them to say, okay, well, yeah, I get it. Okay, well, can you give me an idea, right? Now we're de-escalating, right? We're getting them off of this like exact price thing to like, okay, give me a range, which is what we're trying to have a discussion about anyways, right? Like, we get them down to that conversation. If you can get them to accept to have that, you've done a good job. Okay, cool. And then you always go for the close. That's the next thing, is no matter how this conversation goes, when you get it to the place where you want it to be, don't just sit there and keep talking. Go for the close. And the close is not to sell them membership. The close is to book the appointment for them to come down. Okay, cool. So I have tomorrow or Thursday available, and I'd love to meet. I'm setting, just so you know, like, I know you're busy, but I'm super busy too, and I'm going to set aside my time to meet with you because I think it's worth us having this conversation the right way. So I have Wednesday and Thursday available. Which day works better for you, right? It's very important that like you don't take a subordinate role in the relationship with a prospect. That's another thing I think gym owners do a lot, is they enter the conversation very subordinately. I'm trying to sell you something, person. They put the person on a pedestal, and it's all about how you position yourself in the conversation. Whereas if you look at this as like, okay, they want what I have, I want what they have. What I have is worth more money than what they have, which is like, okay, I have a service, they have money. right? They want my service. They want the outcomes of my service. I want their money in exchange for that, right? Now, if I have a service that I know produces an outcome that's worth $1,000, but I'm only asking $150 a month for it, then it's, really like I'm more the person on the pedestal, right? But I can't position myself that way necessarily to them, but I can come at them as an equal and say, okay, we're here to do business in trade, right? I'm a local service provider. I have a service and an outcome you want, and I'm here to do trade with you. You have this amount of money. That works for me. I have this service. That works for you. Let's do business together, right? And in how you trade is you do trade this way, and we do use persuasion, right? It's part of being a human, right? That we be persuasive with each other and that we do the dance a little bit, because it's how we filter through the noise. And how you can look at this guy is I try to look at this guy that might be more direct with you. I'm very much that way with people, to be honest with you. Like a lot of you guys, there's a side of me where if you know me, I'm very much like this, but I'm a very busy person. So I can be very, very short with salesmen. And, I have door-to-door sales. I had a door-to-door salesman come to my door the other day, a solar guy, and he came to my door, and 90% of the time those guys get launched, right? And they don't get launched because they're bad people, right? And I'm not mean to them. I just say, hey, I'm sorry I don't have time. Keep moving, right? But occasionally I get one that knows right up front, and rather than just come at me with hey, do you have 10 minutes of your time today? What kind of question is that? If you ask me that question, I'm going to say, no, I don't have 10 minutes. I don't have time to answer this door right now. I was in the middle of something, right? If you don't give me the opportunity to think about it, it's not a problem. But this guy answers the door. He goes, hey, man, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about, I don't know, I forget what he said exactly, but he got right into the conversation with me, and he did it in a way that was very amicable and got me talking to him. And he never at any point stopped to try to insert catchphrase here. He just kept moving the discussion that way until I was comfortable enough to where he said, hey, you know what, man, have you thought about XYZ? So he made an investment in the conversation with me by being at my door, right? He made an investment in the conversation with me before going right into a pitch, right? And so sometimes that's what we have to do with people, right? And it's the same with this, and understand that okay, if you're just going to sit there and let the text come through and go back and forth via text, but usually when I get the pricing thing and it goes to that place, before I don't ever respond to those. I just pick up the phone, and if they don't answer the phone, I'll say, hey, I'll try to give you a call about this. Do you got a free minute? Because I always know it's going to go better on the phone, and then I'll invest in that discussion a little bit. Hey, I'll start the call and I'll say, hey, are you coming from another gym and you just moved to the area? Are you okay? Are you going to a global gym? Have you done CrossFit before? If it's a CrossFit gym, for example, Joey's gym is a CrossFit gym. Have you done CrossFit before? Are you familiar with it, with what it normally costs? Are you just looking for the cheapest gym in town? Ask them these questions, because you're going to get more context. It's going to start a discussion. They're going to say something yeah, I just moved into the town from, Phoenix, Arizona. Oh, Phoenix, I've heard it's hot there. Yeah, you like it a lot more here? They're going to say, yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, cool. So what neighborhood do you live in? You moved into this neighborhood or this neighborhood? Oh, okay, I know that neighborhood. I'm very familiar. I live around the corner from there, right? So you're making an investment, guys. You're making an investment. This is good salesmanship, right? And you only got to do this a couple hundred times over the course of a couple of years to grow a really, really good business of recurring revenue that you can eventually just have someone else do that. But honestly, these are conversations that are fun to have. I like getting to know people locally, right? This is not hard work for me. It shouldn't be for you either. You're a local business owner. You should want to have this kind of discussion with people, right? Whenever I go to take my car to the shop I go to, the mechanic I go to him because he's the local neighborhood guy. And he likes, when I go to him, I take my car to alignment. He asked me how it's been, how's the car driving since last time, how's life been, how the kids, he's met my wife, he's like, how's the wife, she's doing good, right? It's he's the neighborhood guy, and everybody goes to this guy, and everybody mentions him on the internet because he's the guy. And it's not because he's the best necessarily in town at doing alignments on cars, right? He's actually pretty good. But that's a skill set that a lot of people can do these days. It's just turning a couple wrenches and adjusting some nuts and bolts, right? It is how he enters the discussion, right? That's why I went into business with him in the first place, right? So it's not only reframing how you're talking to the person, it's yourself. Now, I know this video went on very long to answer a couple of very simple questions, but these simple questions don't always have simple answers, because it's a lot more complicated. It's a lot more complicated how we even get here to why we can't overcome this pricing thing, and why meeting these discussions head on isn't you don't take them for face value, right? This is not the same as like coaching someone in your gym. And sometimes gym owners, because we think so logically, we see things with our brain, we see movement patterns, and this is what I think causes it. And there's a lean with the type of person that is a fitness coach that's really good at it, where like everything is very concrete. You move like this, you have this movement pattern. It's not good. This is how we solve it, right? So it's very, you know, right there, very pragmatic, right? Whereas like the nature of good sales and follow up and converting as many of these discussions into converted new customers and building relation is much more of like relationship building. It's much more of a soft skill. It's much more of understanding before you even get there where the person is coming from and the why, so you can try a different angle with the kind of coming at it from a little bit of like an empathetic place of like understanding that like this person's coming at it because he's used to getting, he's used to like he's not understanding why something costs something, or like he's just looking for the cheapest thing in town because he misunderstands that like cheap means better for some reason when that's not necessarily true, but he doesn't know that. So I can't just like be assumptive here, right? There's a lot more to unpack. And if we all just come at it from that angle, we're ultimately going to do more business with more people and be able to charge more premium prices, and people are going to want to pay them because they understand the value of what we are charging for, right? So that's it, guys. Hopefully that answer helps you immensely, because that's like, I don't know, that's like 20 years now of like, my philosophy around sales, and like this thing, because follow up really is the game changer to your business, in that, we know that if they show up, they're probably going to buy. And most things that we sell, gym memberships, cars, almost anything that people in general, if they're showing interest in something and they show up in the door, like they're probably going to buy it. Now, when you start charging more premium prices for it, you might have to get better at sales, because now you're starting to stretch the buyer's concept of what valuable is outside of their comfort zone. That's another step. But for most people, that's not an issue. It's just getting them to show up. So if we can get more people to show up, we're going to sell more product. So follow-up becomes really like the big linchpin in the game between prospecting and lead generation and sales. So that's really why I wanted to go into this today. So anyways, that's it, guys. If you're watching this on the outside, if I published this on the outside and you're not an active client with Big Little Gyms, go to biglittlegyms.com. This is the kind of stuff that we're getting into on a regular basis to build better business owners, out of gym owners, help them build, get more customers, keep them longer, and make them worth more, while also enhancing the sales, marketing, operations, fulfillment, and finance sides of their business, and also putting systems in place that you can leverage and delegate, and ultimately multiply your effectiveness in your business, generate more leads, get more bookings, get more sales, and ultimately run a better business. That's it. Go to biglittlegyms.com. Talk to you guys soon. See you later. Bye.